Hello everybody and welcome back to Red Eagle Politics. Make sure you guys like this video down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. So yesterday you had the primaries for the New Jersey governor's race because you have two governor's races this year. You have Virginia, which the Republicans currently hold, but Democrats are favored to win. And you have New Jersey, which the Democrats currently hold, but still it is shaping up to be a relatively competitive race, one could argue, much more competitive than a lot of Democrats would really like this to be. And you had a primary yesterday that showed that the Republican Party is relatively unified behind their nominee, with a few people that have a couple hangups, and the Democrats are in complete and total disarray, where their nominee won the primary with just over a third of the vote, and you have these candidates that are splitting their votes all over the place. You have last place finishers winning counties, which again, that's never really a good sign when it comes down to party unity. When your last place finisher doesn't even win one county, but he wins two counties, some of that is due to regional dominance, but it just kind of speaks volumes to how divided the Democrat field is. And people will say, well, the Democrats got more votes than the Republicans. That's technically true, although keep in mind that New Jersey's independents tend to lean right. And this is a closed primary, and this is a state where the totals in the primaries don't always really indicate the general election. But still, if you want to play that game, you have hundreds of thousands of Democrats who did not vote for the nominee. Many will in the general, but still that divided primary field, it's not a good sign when it comes down to party unity. Also, Democrats being the higher propensity party means that they're more likely to show up for an election like this. Meanwhile, the Republican primary was pretty much a done deal, but still you had Jack Ciattarelli end up getting more votes than the Democratic nominee, despite Democrats having, close to like I wouldn't say 2-to-1 advantage on the Republicans in terms of registrations, which, by the way, it's waning. But if you look at this, and we can get into some of the changes later on, Democrats still, have, I guess you would say, almost 50% more than the Republicans in terms of registrations. You take the Republican number, you divide it by half, you add that to their registration total. That's what the Democrats have. But the other vote, that's really what it's going to come down to. When you have a Democratic nominee who is relatively not that well liked, combined with an unpopular incumbent governor, combined with the fact that you have a Republican candidate who almost picked off the state in 2021 in somewhat of a surprise result, it's not shaping up to be an election that the Democrats can sleep at the wheel at, and this is the one Republicans are going to put their time, their energy, their resources into. So we're going to dive into this a little bit more, but really quickly, guys, I have to tell you guys about our great friends over at Allegiance Gold, because while the media is obsessed about Trump's tariffs, something big is brewing. Nobody's talking about it except right here. And starting July 1st, 2025, under new Basel III international banking rules, gold will officially be reclassified as a Tier 1 asset, placing it on the same level as cash and U.S. Treasuries. So the translation, gold is money again. Just in the first quarter, thousands of tons of gold were quietly moved back to the U.S. from Europe. Meanwhile, central banks around the world are stockpiling gold at record levels. It's not a coincidence, it's a signal. So if the world's most powerful financial institutions are hoarding gold, why aren't you? Don't wait, call Allegiance Gold, the trusted experts I've partnered with that have the highest ratings and accolades. They'll help you secure real physical gold and silver delivered straight to your home or placed securely inside your IRA or 401k. Go to allegiancegold.com/redeagle or call 844-790-9191. That's 844-790-9191 and mention Red Eagle. You could be eligible to receive up to $5,000 in free metals, but only if you act now, because gold is freedom, gold is sovereignty, and starting July 1st, gold's officially money. That's allegiancegold.com/redeagle or call 844-790-9191 today. So you have this primary, and the Democrats were relatively divided, Republicans relatively unified. And when it comes down to elections, this is the main focus. Republicans should go all in on New Jersey. Virginia doesn't seem to be shaping up to be a race that's all that competitive. And it's funny because if you look at the presidential election, Virginia went to Harris by roughly 6 percentage points, and New Jersey went to Harris, actually, I believe by less. It went by 5.9 percentage points, which it's a blue state, but keep in mind that it's becoming purple. And you have a large portion of the electorate that kind of fit the archetypal Trump voter, many new Trump voters. You have a heavy, ethnic white population. Those groups have been moving right and have continued to move right in the Trump era. You also have a large Muslim population. They've been abandoning the Democrats. You also have a large religious Jewish population. They've been abandoning Democrats. An Italian population. They've been abandoning Democrats. And also, you do have a lot of white working class voters in the state who are becoming more energized because you have the state as more competitive than it was in years past, and that's a recipe for success. However, it's true that this election does seem to be one where you probably are going to need to turn out those low propensity voters in places like Newark and Passaic County in order to win. Now, 2021, they did a relatively decent job of it. It wasn't good enough to win a county like Passaic, but maybe it just wasn't ready yet. But you had an election with relatively high turnout because these governor's races get a lot more attention than like I guess you would say, Wisconsin Supreme Court election in the middle of April, where the Republicans didn't do that well, and there's numerous reasons for why, but these lower propensity voters are more likely to show up for a race like this one, where it's a governorship, it's highly advertised, and you had 2.6 million votes. Obviously, the presidential election had a lot more, but if Republicans can remain energized in the New York City metro area, in the New Jersey, population centers where Republicans need to do well and where they've been doing well, you have a shot at victory because the Democrats in the state have become less popular. And it's true, Trump is in the White House. People say Democrats are energized. Technically, they are to an extent in some of these special elections, but this election is going to have much higher turnout than a lot of those elections. Besides, we saw a poll from Emerson. Trump's approval rating in New Jersey was like 47% or so, which kind of shows he hasn't lost support. And if that's of the likely electorate that we're expecting, you probably are going to see a competitive race, a very, very competitive race, because you have a Republican candidate who has the Trump endorsement but is kind of independent from Donald Trump. He's not attached at the hip, and you really can't be in the state of New Jersey. He did kind of, in my opinion, go out of his way to distance himself from Trump in 2021. That's not why he did so well. I think it actually could have hurt him because you did have a lot of people say that they didn't want to support him just because of that. And I think that people need to understand it's more about pragmatism. I don't think New Jersey is ready to elect a super MAGA governor. They could be in the future for sure. But as of right now, it's still voted for Kamala Harris by 6 percentage points. And in order to win, you need to run somebody that could peel off, even just 3% of those voters goes a very, very long way, because that would be the 6% needed to win. And Jack has shown his ability to have that crossover appeal. Wasn't quite enough to beat Phil Murphy. He was kind of left stranded in 2021, is much less likely to be left stranded in 2025. And that's true. And also New Jersey is still moving to the right. Despite Democrats having a big primary showing, Republicans in May still out-registered the Democrats ahead of the primary, which was huge. And they've done a decent job since the election, because you look at this, Democrats have a lead of just 827,000 after 2020, which is probably, even we could look at 2022 even as a baseline for 21. Democrats had 1.1 million voters on the Republicans. That is now down to just over 800,000 and declining. Could be 800,000 or less come election day. And when Donald Trump won the state of Pennsylvania in 2016, the advantage that the Democrats had in Pennsylvania was actually greater than the current advantage they hold in New Jersey, and that advantage wanes by the day, the week, the month, you name it. So Republicans can win this election. They need to be engaged. The Democrats are somewhat divided. The Republicans are largely united behind Jack Ciattarelli, and they need to take advantage of that, and hopefully he can run a really good campaign down the stretch, because that's what's going to win this election. You know, we don't really have any head-to-head polls, it seems, for the general election for some reason, and I'm not entirely sure why that is, but the experts are saying, and we know they've been wrong time and time again, lean Democrat in New Jersey. So even they're kind of admitting, yeah, it's going to be competitive. And I think lean Democrat is fair to start. I'd say Republicans are not going to open up as the favorites here. But still, do they have a clear opportunity in a state where they've kind of, played hot potato between the parties with the governorship historically, and you have an unpopular Democrat incumbent? And it is true that that kind of is something that will persist and could impact the voters' perception of the Democrat nominee, who's not even viewed that favorably within their own party, to only get a third of the vote. Yeah, I mean, it definitely has a major impact, and you will probably see a very close race. Too early to call for sure, but Republicans have an outside chance, and maybe a little bit more than an outside chance, to flip New Jersey. And that would be huge, and it would make up for Virginia, and it would showcase that Democrats in the long term in New Jersey would be in a whole lot of trouble. And that may be the case at the presidential level, regardless of what ends up happening this November. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching this video. Like this video down below, comment down below, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications so you never miss another video. Follow me on social media. The links are all in the description down below, and I will see you guys in the next one. Red Eagle out.